YouTube, I'm Tyler, and today you're watching another Fischler Moto review video. This is a 1993 Kawasaki Zephyr 550, also known as the Kawasaki ZR 550. Very retro looking bike, naked styling, and this exact bike was my first ever big bike on an A2 licence. Today I'm off to Munchies Burger Van at Bradwell Marina. Short little blast out on this bike today. If you're in the area and you haven't been there already, Munchies on a Wednesday night does a bike meet. It's a pretty good turnout, and to be honest, as many bikers who can show the support the better. Because there's a few rich locals in the village who think because they bought a house in the village, they own the village and they can put a stop to bikers doing what bikers do. Well, guess what, moody Karens off the village? We've been coming here for a long time, and we will continue to come here and support local businesses as long as we're riding bikes. So you best get used to it. But anyway, enough about the moody villagers with their pitchforks. You've tuned in because you want to know about this. This bike was my first big bike after I passed my A2 licence after my 125. I've had it about 5 years, done about 35,000 miles on it. I've taken it all the way up north, all the way down south, all over the UK. This was my little workhorse for a few years. And then when I upgraded, I took it off the road and taught myself how to do a full nut and bolt restoration using this bike. And I'm so glad I did decide to do the restoration. It's been worth every penny, every hour spent, the lot. So it's such a lovely modern classic, if you want to call it that, or modern retro. It's not quite classic, it's not 40 years, but it's got all the stylings of a classic, and it is getting to the age, well, it ain't far off it anyway. The engine in this bike is an inline-4 air-cooled 550cc. Produces roughly 50 brake horsepower, and not much torque off the top of my head. It's got quite a short wheelbase, which means it handles very well. You point, you go. And the engine is very revvy. But it's one of those engines, you're constantly wringing the neck out of it to get the performance out of it because it's such a small engine. But overall, it's fun. Very, very fun. That was old Bill. That was old Bill, shit. It is a very revvy engine. Where it's small, you have got to wring it a bit to get the performance out of it. But it's part of the character of this bike and what makes it fun to ride. It's a very comfy bike to ride, very upright in seat positioning, fairly flat bars, and it handles very well. So you point, you go. Got a bit of grunt out the corners, but not too much that it's not intimidating. Like I said, this was my first bike on an A2 restricted licence. So for something like that, it was perfect. You've got to hold it at the top end for all the power, because it don't have much power. But to be honest, the retro looks and the styling make up for the lack of power. one downside to this bike, it is a naked bike, so you do get beaten up by the wind quite a bit compared to a full fairing sports bike. Handling, the front forks are very soft, very wavy, not the greatest. The original rear springs were the same, so I've swapped them out. Doing the front springs is next to my list. I'm hoping to be able to put some progressive springs in there, stiffen it up. But for a 30-year-old bike, it don't handle too bad. I've ridden a lot worse, I've ridden a lot better. And also, it's an old bike. These weren't built to be ridden hard and thrashed. They're not a track bike, they're not a race bike. They're a naked muscle bike, if you want to call them that. Anyway, I'll be at Munchies in a minute. So when I'm pulled over, I'll give you a walk around and just talk to you some more about the bike and why I like it and why I decided to restore it and it's staying in part of my collection. There you go, we've been to Munchies Burger Van in Bradwell. It was rather busy there and everyone was eating their food, so I didn't want to start sticking the camera in their face and filming them all. So I've gone round the corner to RAF Bradwell Bay, which is nice and quiet, to show you the Zephyr. Originally this bike was red, but when I restored it last year, I painted it this old Kawasaki green. I also decided to put the decals on, which got from a guy called Andre, who has a unit next to my work. I'll put his email in the description of this video in case you want to get any other graphics, stickers or anything print wise done. He's the man to go for. Lots of shiny things on this bike. You've got to keep polishing all the time, keeps you busy in your spare time and on rainy days. Engine cases, airbox case, exhaust, wheels, yokes, headlights around, a lot. Like I said earlier on in the video, put new aftermarket rear shocks on because the original ones were very sloppy. The front ones are originals, I've just polished them, but at some point I will be putting stiffer springs in. When I restored this, I tried to keep it as original as possible, as well as modernising certain things like brakes. So the front's now got a ZX 6R master cylinder, new set of levers, and that's about it. Off the top of my head, the bike's got about 50 brake horsepower and roughly about the 30 foot-pounds of torque mark. Don't hold me to the foot-pounds of torque, it's just a rough ballpark figure off the top of my head. For what it is quite a heavy bike, but it is a very low seating bike. So if you are a small person, it's definitely a bike to consider. Nowadays, you can pick these up for fairly cheap. They're going anywhere between a few £100 and a couple of grand, depends on the condition you want to get them in. I've had 3 of them, and not a single one has cost me more than £500, and 2 out of the 3 were roadworthy with MOT. I did put the original exhaust system back on this bike, but I did cut off the condenser box and plate it off, so it is a bit louder, and personally, I think it sounds awesome. So now you've seen it, YouTube, tell me what you think in the comments. Personally, I think it's quite a pretty old bike, but I want to know what you think and what you have to say. So hit that like button if you're liking this video, and make sure to leave a comment and let me know what you think of this Zephyr. Overall, my conclusion on this bike, trying not to be biased considering I've had this bike for 5 years and it's one of my favourite bikes, is for the price you pay for a modern retro, it's a good all-round package. They're fairly bulletproof, fairly reliable. You can still get parts for them, but some parts you do have to look. Online forums for these bikes are so helpful. There's a couple of little groups. There's some general Zephyr groups and there's some dedicated 550 and 750 and 1100 groups. Everybody on those groups is very friendly and very helpful and very knowledgeable with these old bikes. If you want to know what the 0 to 60 time is of this bike, you're going to have to watch one of my other videos, as that's covered there. But honestly, if you're looking at getting one of these for a back road bit of fun, a classic bike you can take to shows, or just something old and cool to look at to have in your garage, I definitely recommend one. The bike's got lots of character, and it may not be the fastest thing in the world, but honestly, this is more fun to ride with my Ninja. It's got more character, it's got more vibe, it makes people talk more. You got to work it more, you got to ride it more. Overall, the bike's a good bike and a fun bike. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're looking at getting one of these bikes, I recommend it. And if you're a biker who's in the area on a Wednesday night, make sure you go down to Munchies in Bradwell Marina